All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this live Local U webinar with myself, Elizabeth, and Joy. We're here because we thought you guys probably have a ton of questions on this new diversity update that we put a video out on Tuesday for. And we decided, you know what, why not have a last minute live webinar so that we can answer as many of those questions as possible and really get that conversation going about what this update did and its impact. So to start, Joy, can you summarize exactly what this update is, when it started, and the impact you're seeing?
Yeah, so we have a video that just came out on Tuesday. If you haven't watched it already, I would definitely suggest going and doing that after, because there's some details in there that I may or may not get to today. But essentially what it was is 6 months ago, back in August, started noticing some trends for a couple clients of ours. And what we were basically noticing was their organic rankings for local terms. So for example, like Plumber Denver or personal injury lawyer Orlando. That's what I mean when I'm talking about local terms. We noticed the organic ranking had dropped a lot, and it wasn't like a small amount. For some of them, it was pretty significant where, they used to be like in the top 2 or 3 positions and they were pushed way further down the page. When you see this for one client, there's nothing to worry about, obviously, but like when you start to see this pattern for a few, you kind of wonder what's going on. So I started digging in and trying to figure it out. And then when we started seeing the same pattern across a bunch of other clients, we're like, okay, something's going on here. So I spent 3 months basically analyzing and testing different things. And when I first started, I had a couple theories. What ended up concluding was one of the ones that I was like, no way, this is what it is. Like, it can't be this, not a chance. And then we did some testing and I'm pretty confident this is what's going on. So I'll show you visually because I feel like visuals tell better stories. So we'll put up on the screen this first example that was a law firm. I'm going to try and clarify what industries we were seeing this in because that might be helpful for people. So this law firm, we actually updated their Google business profile because we do this often for clients. We will try to get them ranked for a specific thing. So let's say, for example, we wanted this client to rank better for bicycle accident lawyer. We try and figure out like what page is the most relevant for that term. And then we would put that page as their link, their website link on their Google business profile. That's exactly what we did here, not for that term, a different one, but basically same concept. And what we noticed when we updated their Google business profile is that their organic rankings completely tanked. So you'll see like within a week's time on December 11th, so the second image here, they went from ranking like in the first position organically in their local area to position like 9 or 10. Now, I want to clarify these graphs. These are looking at organic rankings. This is not their local pack rankings. This particular business already dominated local pack rankings. We were just trying to bump it up like 1 or 2 positions, but their organic rankings went down. That's really strange because I've been asked many times over the years, does your organic rankings, is it influenced at all by the local pack? Are those two connected? And my answer was always no. Like I've never seen something you do with your business profile impact organic. Like I've been asked, do reviews impact it? Like if you have a good rating or a lot of reviews, does that help your website move up in the organic position? And again, my answer has always been no. I've never seen any patterns that would indicate that was the case. So this was really shocking to me. And then we were like, okay, let's try reversing it. So I went back and I switched their business profile to link back to the page it was prior linking to, which was a different page than the one that was ranking organically. And their organic rankings came back. Really crazy stuff. So what's new about this update? Like I know I'm calling it an algorithm update, but I want to clarify. It's not an algorithm update in the sense that it is a specific date. Google launched this thing and it's impacting everybody on the same date. This is a change to the algorithm in a behavior that we've never seen before. I've never experienced this in my entire career. So I do believe that something actually fundamentally changed with their algorithm. The earliest date we can track this to is August of last year. So I've talked to a bunch of SEOs. I've talked to several already that have said that, yes, they also noticed something within August, or some of them said they started seeing it later in the fall. We started seeing this for different clients on different dates. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Like this particular one didn't happen obviously until we messed with their Google business profile. But we saw others that started to have declines in like October or November, and even more so in the last month. So I've got a couple other examples that I'll queue up here. The second example that I've got was a home services company. So for this particular client, their pattern was easier to spot because they have so many locations. So we had so much data to look at. I feel like if this was a single location business, I might have missed this. Like, I'm not actually sure I would have come to any conclusions because they have so many locations, and because this particular business, they dominate local pack and organic, and they have for years. It was actually really obvious to me when they started to drop. We were like, holy crap, they used to rank in the top 3 consistently all over the city of Phoenix here. This is one of their markets. And then they went from that great ranking to what's on the left here. Like, they started ranking like 4th, 5th, 8th, like, and that, because of that position difference, it's a huge impact to their traffic. So if you're in position 1, 2, 3, on, again, still talking about organic rankings, and you go to like position 5 or 6, that can be like devastating. Like, you'll lose so much traffic because the click-through rate is different, right? So it's a lot more different than if you went from like position like 7 to 9. You probably would notice absolutely nothing with your traffic. So this particular client, if you want to pull up the image, Richard, there's a graph that I showed from Search Console, basically showing you like how much traffic they lost just within like a month's period, I believe it was. And it was substantial because they had so many locations. So again, it was easier for me to track. I will point out something that I didn't mention in the previous video, but that could be something that's related. I'm not sure if this is more prominent on mobile than it is on desktop, because something to keep in mind is all of our graphs that we're looking at, these are all mobile rankings. So I have found over the last year that there is a growing difference between mobile and desktop rankings. And for this particular client, I was just looking at them this morning because I was like, I wonder how much of their traffic loss here was on mobile. It was predominantly mobile. So if you're not tracking mobile rankings and you don't see any changes, that could be another reason why. But I would also say, like, the bigger the site, the more locations you have, the easier it is to see the pattern if you're being impacted. I've got a couple more examples. So you can put up the next one is a physical therapist. This was also multi-location. They've got a few different locations in Florida. And this one, again, was used to rank really well. They went to, like, you'll see the red. And again, we updated their Google business profile to link to a different page, and their rankings came back. That's also what I did in the previous case, by the way, to make it go green again. So all these cases that we're showing you, these are all clients where we went back and like tried updating their Google business profile, linked it to a different page, and then the organic rankings rebounded, which is just crazy in my opinion.
Yeah.
So one more example on here, just because people were asking for more examples, so I wanted to give more, but I think the last one's also a lawyer. Sorry, I talk about lawyers a lot, but this one was another lawyer. And I just wanted to point out here, like, the phenomenon, it's kind of interesting. The only thing that increases organically is where your Google business profile ranks. So the essential, like, TLDR of this update is if Google sees that you're ranking really well in the local pack, and then they also see in that same URL down below in the organic section, they're pretty much like demoting your organic ranking because they're like, well, this business is already here. This is my theory, right? Again, not Google. So this is my theory based on the patterns we're seeing in the tests that we've run. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me on why Google would do that, because we do know that Google says in their guidelines and things that they want diversity in their search results. It's something that they do with organic rankings already to try and make it so that the same site doesn't rank over and over and over and over again. So they have already got systems in there. I've just never seen that connection with local pack rankings before. Like, it's almost like they never looked at them as a factor when figuring out who to rank organically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something we've seen though.
Yeah.
So I got a couple questions here. We can dive into the question portion. Miriam Ellis asked us on LinkedIn, and I think this is a great question because a lot of people are wondering, like, how does this potentially impact local rankings too? So she said, we've always believed that organic rankings support local pack rankings to some unknown degree. How would you sum up the impact of organic rankings on local pack rankings?
Yeah, so I actually think they're separate algorithms. At least I did up until now. I always thought of them as separate because even different things are weighted differently. So, like, you could change a title tag, for example, and find that it has a larger impact on your local pack rankings than your organic rankings. Like, we've seen things like this, like URL structure can impact the two differently. So I've never thought of them as the same algorithm. I've always thought that they use a lot of the same factors. Obviously, relevance is the main thing that SEOs are trying to optimize for. They're trying to make sure you got the right keywords on the page and things like that, which is why changing your Google business profile and linking to the right page matters, because you increase your relevance signals, then your ranking increases. I.e., if you want to rank for bicycle accident lawyer and you have a page that talks about bicycle accidents all over the page, you're going to rank better for that term than if you link to a page that talks about slip and fall accidents. So we've seen that connection. But I think that is still true. Like that local pack ranking still uses your website as a signal and all the relevance and stuff. What's new is this concept that, like, while you might increase your local pack rankings by doing that, you might decrease your organic rankings. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I want to dominate both. So it's not ideal.
Exactly. All right, we got some questions here from the audience as well. Are you seeing this affect certain industries more than others? Like you mentioned lawyers a lot, but other industries?
Yeah, so no, I have not seen that it's industry specific, because like the industries we looked at are not related at all. We saw it in like senior care clients, home services, lawyers. I talk about lawyers a lot because I work on a lot of lawyer accounts. So I just know a lot more about them. But yeah, the industries we've seen it on so far are not at all related. So doesn't seem to be specific to one.
All right, great. So we got another one here from Ella. Is it only related to search keywords and intended page and the intended page? For example, if the GBP page is personal injury lawyer focused, would this diversity update impact the car accident lawyer organic rankings?
Yeah, this is a great example. So let's say you want to rank for both, right? So when you type in personal injury, tongue twister. When you type in personal injury lawyer, let's say Chicago, you might get a page. Let's say it's your homepage. Then when you type in personal injury lawyer, car accident lawyer Chicago, you get your car accident page. So you have two different search results, usually not ranking the same URL. Usually it's one ranks one page, one ranks another page in the organic section, which is usually how Google works. But if you link to one of those, you'll probably notice that your organic rankings for that thing would decline. So let's say, for example, it's your homepage that ranks for personal injury lawyer, and that's currently where you link your Google business profile to. If that's the case, and this update impacted you, you might see a decrease in your organic ranking for that term as of the last 6 months. So that's what you want to look for when you're looking in Search Console. Check the URL of the page that you are linking your Google business profile to. Hopefully you're using UTM codes. If you are, you can actually segment which is coming from local pack and which is coming from organic. So just look at organic. And if there's a decline, that's where you have to make a choice, because if you do what we did in this case and you're like, oh, I'm going to change my landing page to be the car accident page, well, then you might see personal injury go up and car accident go down. It's really annoying. So ideally, you actually want to link to a page that is still topically relevant, but actually doesn't rank high at all organically, which is so weird for me to wrap my brain around because it's opposite of what I've always done. But you do still need it to be relevant. So I want to clarify, you do not want to go link your Google business profile to like your contact page or some like empty page. I had somebody ask me if they should link it to like a no index page. I was like, no, like, you'll see your local pack rankings tank. There is a way to do it. Like I said, we've been testing this with clients. You just have to find a related page, not exactly the same. So car accident, for example, you could look at like, I don't know, truck accidents might be somewhat related or something like that.
Or if you're a multi-location business and you have a state page, would that be a good page to link to?
Yeah, definitely try that. Like we've tried a lot of really interesting outside the box ideas. And the great thing about this is you should know within about 2 weeks if it worked or not. Like go back, measure, see what happened. Definitely pay attention to mobile, because I have a feeling there's a thing there, or it's more of a signal there. But if you don't notice any gains or losses, then whatever, just continue. But if you see any losses, then obviously you want to change it back.
Yeah.
I know we've had at least one of those where what we switched it to was not better.
Yeah.
But you can easily test this. It's one of those things that I feel like is one of the easiest things for marketers to try and find solutions to.
Yeah, agreed. All right, you mentioned UTM codes a moment ago. And then Jeffrey here asked, does the URL need to be an exact match, or does having a UTM code on your GBP URL make it different enough?
Unfortunately, the UTMs don't matter. So if you're using the same URL on, it's the same one that ranks organically that you're using on your listing, and all you did was add UTMs on your listing, that doesn't matter. Google's considering it the same URL. You still want to use UTM codes, by the way. That's the only way that I was able to come to some of these conclusions, because I could actually isolate organic traffic and realize, hey, our local pack rankings are fine. Like all of these clients I'm talking about here that we've seen this on, their local pack rankings have not taken a hit at all. They're great. So this is a strictly kind of organic negative thing.
Yeah. But you always want to check your map rankings after to ensure they don't go down as well. Yeah.
You can satisfy both. It's just harder, right? It used to be so much easier. And now I'm like, of course, Google makes things more complicated for us. But, I don't know if we should be thanking them for job security or getting mad at them. I go back and forth.
Yeah. All right. So I got 2 questions here that are related to Ads LSA. So I think we can kind of answer both of these together. So the first one here from Will, do you either see a trend or think there could ever be a trend where running an ad campaign could demote you in the organic search results or local pack and for using the same page as the URL? And then someone else asked about LSA here. And it says, do you think having LSAs running can now affect local and organic?
I don't think Google would do that, because I feel like it would make people not want to advertise, right? So if I'm thinking in Google's head and what they're really trying to accomplish, they're always trying to accomplish more ad spend. They're always wanting to increase their bottom line. So I don't think that they would hurt their advertisers. I don't think. Again, this is one of those things where I'm like, also, if you asked me a year ago about this topic we're discussing right now, I would have told you a year ago there's no way Google would do this either. So always test and always be watching things carefully. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't feel like that would be in Google's best interest to ever do that, because you don't want to hurt your advertisers.
Yeah, agreed. All right. So I got a question here from Jeff. For the new GBP website page, we have been setting the page to no index, no crawl, just to make sure the new page doesn't wind up getting indexed. What are your thoughts on that?
Don't do that. So first of all, if you try to link your Google profile to a non-indexed page, half the time it won't even accept it. Like it'll just reject it. You'll get a line. We see this all the time in the forums. People will try and add URLs that are not in Google's index, and they won't accept them. So I definitely wouldn't do that. I would also venture to say it'll probably completely mess up your local pack rankings. So definitely not that as a solution. One of the easiest solutions is like switch between, your homepage and a location page, depending on which of the two is strongest organically, go to the other one. Those are the two that I feel like we flip-flopped the most between for clients. But also, don't be afraid to try a different page on your site, that as long as it's relevant, not the exact same word, but related, if that makes sense. So, even if you're a plumber, you might have an emergency plumber page that's not your main page for plumbing, but you could try that page. Again, watch what happens to emergency keywords, but you get my drift. It has to be related, but not exactly the same topic.
Yeah. So it sounds like we really need to be testing and checking those most important keywords to ensure there's no major changes to maps when you're trying to really improve organic rankings for specific terms.
Yeah. I want to clarify something too, though. This is not impacting all our clients. We have tons of clients that came out of this completely fine. It is not something that I would say is completely widespread in the sense that everybody's going to get impacted. I know a good number of people are getting impacted because I started seeing threads on forums about it, and I only started seeing those threads in the last month. So this is something that I often do with algorithm updates. I've named a lot of them. We've published a lot of them. And one of the biggest things I look for is anybody else seeing this? Is it just me? Am I going crazy? Am I imagining things? Even though I've got lots of data to back it up, it's really helpful to see that other people are coming to the same conclusions. So I started seeing these threads in the last month. We had a couple threads on Reddit that I was noticing where people were like, what is going on? My organic leads have dried up. I don't rank anymore on mobile. I got shoved way down the page organically. So I started to see that trend. So I want to say it's impacting a lot of people, but it's not impacting everybody. If you don't notice any declines in organic ranking, or if you haven't seen a drop in your organic traffic, I wouldn't touch anything. For real, don't mess with it, because you could actually do the opposite of what you're trying to do. I'm a big fan of do not fix what is not broken. So don't just assume this is impacting you. Check. And then if it is, for those clients or for your business, definitely, try some things.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of tried and true SEO tactics that are still working. And we're going to be talking about a lot of those at our local U virtual conference in March. So here's the QR code for you guys to sign up if you haven't already. I'm going to be speaking along with a bunch of other amazing speakers, a lot of them from Sterling Sky, others from other companies in the industry. So definitely make sure to join us. I'm going to be talking more about this particular update in my presentation, along with other things that we noticed changed in 2024, and tell you what's still working well in 2025. So you can know, like, do I need to change my SEO tactics drastically for things like this? Or are the tried and true methods still working? So definitely hit that QR code and get your tickets. All right, so we're going to go to some more questions here. So would you recommend creating a net new dedicated GBP page?
I'm doing this right now for a couple clients. So kind of to be determined. I feel like I'm going to publish a lot more on this in the next few months, but definitely something I'm trying. The only caveat is, like, if you create a page that's too similar to an existing page, you may have a hard time getting it indexed. So depending on the industry, I'll tell you, this is a lot tougher with lawyers than it is for home services. Home services, we don't usually have any issues getting pages indexed, but lawyers, because, you know, every lawyer on the planet has an SEO company and they're all creating these pages. So Google has 5,000 copies of every single, you know, dog bite page that exists for every city. It's harder to get those indexed. So depending on your industry, you might have an easier time than others, but I am absolutely trying this strategy out. So I'll report back on how well it works. All the ones that we've tried it on so far have been clients that had other pages already. So we weren't going out and actually creating new ones.
Yeah. All right, so I got a question. We had a couple questions sent to us before the webinar, so I'm going to do one of those. Is it even worth keeping organic rankings when we rank in the map pack already? Assuming Google only allows you to pick one or the other, like, wouldn't you just want to be in the map pack and not care about organic?
So this is going to be one of those, like, it depends moments. No, I actually hate it when SEOs say that, but I will say that we have a lot of clients that get more leads from organic than the local pack, like a lot. So, and lots of multi-location clients. I will say that I feel like organic rankings are like the forgotten stepchild in local SEO. Like, people obsess about their map pack rankings and they're like, I don't give a crap about organic. But we see, again, looking at like lead trends, contact form submissions, phone calls on site, we see so many clients get way more, and I mean like a lot more, from organic, because you can stretch further, right? So you are limited with your business profile. You can rank in a certain amount of area. There eventually becomes a cap where you just can't rank any further, right? Doesn't matter how good of an SEO you are, there's always a cap at some point. So we have a lot of clients that, like, you know, hammer out location pages, service area pages, tons of content. So their spread organically is just so much larger. So I would not at all forget about organic. But again, depending on your business, if you are, for example, an emergency type business, you're probably going to get way more leads from local pack rankings. So I absolutely would put them at a higher priority over organic. But I would also say there's no reason why you can't dominate both. Like, it's just harder. But we gave a solution. Like, literally, I would say, you know, if you're suffering a loss, try this, see if it works. Let us know. I have several open threads about it where I'm like actively telling people, like, hey, come back to me in like 2 weeks after you try this. I want to know how often it works, because it's worked for the majority of clients of ours. But I love hearing feedback from the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cody, I hope that answers your question too. Maps, you know, tend to generate more leads, but you have to check for your own business. Like, where are you getting a majority of your leads before you make that assertion? Okay, so I got some more questions here. Rob asks, in your testing, how quickly do you normally see the changes happening in Google? You mentioned earlier, like, checking back after like 2 weeks of making this particular landing page change.
Yeah. So one thing I will tell you that speeds it up, 2 weeks is the max. If it's longer than 2 weeks and you haven't noticed a change, I would throw it out. Like, I'm a big fan of single variable testing. So I realize not every SEO likes doing those, but I love changing one thing, watching what happens. And I'm obsessive about checking like screenshots, like who else moved? Was it just me? Was it other businesses that went up and down? And that helps me answer the question of, like, is it the thing I did, or is it something that Google changed for everybody. So in these particular tests, the ones we were testing, I was like literally pouring over like screenshots and noticing like it's just our client that's moving. There's nobody else moving. Like when they went up and then they went down, everybody else stayed the same. There was no other changes during that time frame. So that makes me more confident that it's the thing I'm doing. And then once you're confident, you have a theory, you go do it on a bunch of other businesses. When you get the same result, you know that you're onto something. That's the process that we do here currently.
Yeah.
So I would say the shorter time period, the better, but I would give it 2 weeks. The one thing that will speed it up is whatever page that you change to. So let's say, for example, and you're changing to the dog bite lawyer page, go into Search Console, make sure Google recrawls that page. That'll speed it up. Because if Google doesn't come back to that page and recrawl it, let's say I've seen some clients where they only get some of their pages crawled like once a month, then you won't actually see anything update. So you do need Google to like recrawl the pages that you're using as your business profile landing page. So do that if you haven't already. That will help speed it up. Because a couple of these where I did that, it was like the next day that I saw the change.
Such a good tip. And where do you do that? You do that in Search Console?
Yeah, so you just go in and you put the URL in and then you like request indexing. So I spam that thing. We get limits all the time at our agency. We like submit it a lot. So yeah.
The dreaded limit. But yeah, definitely make sure that's getting crawled as quickly as possible to see results quicker. That makes sense. All right, I got another question here, and this is one too I was wondering. We kind of touched on earlier, but I think bears a little bit of repeating. This person has an example of where their GBP stopped ranking in the local packs, I'm assuming recently. Does the diversity update work to the other way around, or does it only affect organic?
So not that I've seen. So I've not seen the reversal happen where you start to like increase organically and then decrease locally. It's almost like it's like calculating it in order, right? So if you're already there, then your second instance, which would be your organic instance, is the one that gets shoved down. For the record, this is how it works with strict organic search results, right? If you have a page that already ranks, Google sees another page from the same website, they usually will push that other page down. And we often will combine those two pages and see a lift, right? So that's the organic algorithm. So it's like, it's just factoring it in now. These are like positions 1, 2, and 3. It's like, oh, you're already there. So no, I've not seen any evidence that it's working the other way around at all. And if you've had local pack ranking decreases, I would say it's unrelated to what we are talking about here.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. We got time for a couple more questions. So I'm going to go quick here. Alicia asks, if the organic page is fluctuating, sometimes it's in spots 1 to 3 and other times it's 7 to 9. Would you still try this tactic?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, you could, there's no harm in trying really, as long as you're checking within a week or so. I don't think there's any negative, but I would say like if it's going back and forth, that's something else possibly as well. Like, I don't know if I've witnessed that behavior too much, but I'd probably try it, but I'm not sure I'd expect to see the same result.
Yeah, I would absolutely try it too. All right. So I got another question from someone that wrote in before the webinar. They are concerned about switching the GBP landing page as a test since it is one of the updates that can trigger a re-verification or a suspension. How are things looking on that front? Like, how do you feel about that?
I don't think I've ever seen one from the URL being changed. Liz, have you? Like, I
haven't, no.
No. So definitely for phone number changes, address changes. I've heard of it for name changes, even though I haven't experienced it myself. Like if you're, I don't know, adding a word or something.
Yeah.
I've never seen it for a URL change. We change URLs a lot. So I'll say this is something that we do quite a bit with clients, and I've never seen a re-verification. However, if you do, don't come back and yell at me, because like just because I haven't experienced it and Liz hasn't experienced doesn't mean it's not possible. And I will say that certain industries are more like annoying than others. So, you know, if you're a garage door repair business and you update anything, it can like cause problems, right? But I wouldn't be afraid of trying this. But that being said, if it does trigger a re-verification, please let me know. Because like I just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean it's not happening to everyone.
I think as long as your business is like, you know, sound and your other things on the profile are, you know, good and with guidelines, you'll be fine. Google's not going to trigger that if the business seems legit in all other ways. You just need to make sure if it's a sketchy business, you know, you want to be careful with changes, but as long as you're legit, you should be fine.
Yeah, I will say there's one thing to keep in mind, something Brad Wetherall said. So I had a webinar recently, a month or two ago on our channel with a guy named Brad Wetherall. If you haven't watched it, my goodness, that guy is amazing. He is an ex-Googler. He was very high up on Google, on the Google team and like director level. And he had some really interesting insights. And one of the things he said is like, Google places a lot of trust on the account, right? So I've heard agencies tell me these crazy things like, all my listings are going into re-verification if I like add a category or do this little small change. And I'm like, that's so weird. We've never experienced that. The problem is our agency account, because it's established, we have a lot of businesses in there. We've been doing this for years. We're not spammers. We have a lot of trust. But if you are a brand new account, Google doesn't trust you at all. Yeah. So I have heard stories from people where their accounts are new or the business account that they have it in is new and they're having all these headaches. So that's another thing to consider. Like, we often don't have that kind of experience because we do have an agency account. It's a really big plug for having an agency account, by the way, because if you do a lot of edits and you do work with a lot of businesses over time, your account should become very, very trusted, which is great because it won't be as likely to trigger re-verifications or suspensions when you're doing these kind of changes.
Yeah. All right. We actually have plenty of time for questions. I misspoke earlier, so let's get back to it. This question asks, would it be a good idea to add a link to a link tree in the GMB section? That's interesting. I've never thought about doing that.
No. I mean, that's one that I'm like, because you're switching domains then, and like, I don't think I would do that. Yeah, that type of thing. If you switch domain names, Google might be like, what is this? Because they look for things that are signals of hijacks. Hijacks is something that I don't see a lot of anymore, but if you asked me like 5 years ago, used to be a really great tactic for spammers to take over like closed business listings and things. And they'd go in and they'd find a restaurant. They did it, I think, with Sears listings. When Sears went out of business, they'd go and like hijack old Sears listings because they wanted all their authority, and then they'd like change it to a locksmith. So that tactic is something that Google has built up systems to fight against. So if they think you're trying to hijack a listing because you're like completely changing the information, not only will they suspend the listing, but they could blacklist you as a user. So that's not a tactic I would try.
Yeah. And then this question is in a similar vein. They're asking, could you link to a 301 URL in the GBP that takes a user to the original page they're intended to be at?
Also not something I've tried, but probably wouldn't try because usually Google doesn't accept those URLs. They don't like them. I would also say that like it slows down your loading speed, can cause problems. Like I've seen even people screw up, when they switch their domain name or whatnot, and redirects are screwed up. I've seen that cause a lot of problems. So no, I wouldn't go that route. Again, just find a different page, try a different page on your website. You're bound to have one. I've even tried for some people, like bio pages can be optimized for the main term, right? So like, let's say you're a dentist, Liz might be a dentist here and she has a bio page that talks about her as a dentist, and again, you probably want to make sure it references the city and all that stuff, but that could be another one that you could try linking to as well. That might be a good alternative. Just you want to make sure that the core keywords that you're trying to target are well represented on that page.
Yeah. So that brings up this question by Carrie, which is very good. What if you did a Linktree type page on your own domain and you're linking to those most important pages on your site?
Haven't tried it. If you can get that page indexed, and that's a big if, worth trying, right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I love about this industry. It's like, try anything as long as there's no like ramifications. The only thing I would say, again, the risk here is that you don't want to be too risky with it in the sense that you don't want your local pack rankings to tank, but this type of change is usually very reversible. So as I kind of illustrated with the first example, when we did that switch and we were not expecting that to happen, we reversed it and it went back to what it was before. So this should be something that's easy to reverse.
Yeah. So on that note, we have another question that came in before the webinar. What is the best place to check for these organic ranking losses and then to track, the progress you're making when you do a change like this?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of tracking organic rankings on a grid, as you've probably seen. There's a limited number of tools that do this, so I think that's challenging. We use Places Scout, so they do it. We also, again, track mobile rankings. I made that switch a year ago. Firm believer that everybody should be doing that. Across any business type that we work with, the traffic majority is mobile. So I've been seeing over the last year that they are becoming very different. Like the search results are different on mobile than they are on desktop. They're mostly the same. Maybe let's say they're 90% the same. I made up that number. Don't quote me on that. But like they're mostly the same. But we are seeing that they're more different. So I've seen like, grids on desktop look very different than grids on mobile. So we're big fans of tracking mobile. So I would say look at those and check your rankings compared to what they were in like beginning of August, July. Like before I ever saw this, anything prior to August, I didn't see this pattern at all. So when we're comparing, we do like very beginning of August or like July to be safe. If you don't have that, check Search Console. Go into Search Console. Again, look at like, depending what type of business you are. If you're really seasonal, you might want to look year over year. If you're not super seasonal, then just see how your rankings, or sorry, your traffic to your page that you're linking your business profile looks like last 6 months versus previous 6 months. And that will give you an indication. Again, big tip here, exclude branded terms when you're doing this analysis. We have so many clients that if I didn't exclude branded terms, so minus, their brand name, the numbers would look very different because they get so much branded traffic on their location pages. So make sure you are excluding that if you're using Search Console, but you're looking for traffic declines. If you haven't noticed a drop in your leads too, again, I wouldn't stress too much about this. All the examples we were looking at were things that were like very high converting pages or things that the client gets a lot of traffic from that's very important to their business.
Yeah. All right. So Jeff here has another question. How many competitors do you typically use when you're doing testing?
We do them on clients, right? So I'm not like altering competitors, let's be clear. But so my general rule when I'm doing testing is I try in 3 different unrelated businesses. And then if I notice the same patterns on those, we'll start rolling it out to more. So I always start with minimum of 3. I think that's like bare minimum. And then again, looking for the consistency. And then we just start rolling it out. I can tell you right now, we've probably only done this on about a dozen or so clients. So it is not impacting all of our clients, but we have a lot more that we haven't even tried it on yet because we're waiting to see what happened with the first batch. So again, I'm safe when it comes to this stuff. I've been looking at this for about 3 months, but like heavily analyzing some of the biggest losers, trying to figure out what the patterns were. So like we have one client that the pattern was very clear because they have like 60 locations. Really easy to see when you have that much data. So they were one of the first ones that we were like tackling this for, like changing a bunch of their locations. But it certainly is not impacting all of our clients, like I said earlier.
Yep. All right. Here's a good related question. They just want to clarify, are you noticing that your organic rankings are only affected when you're ranking number 1 in the map pack, or does it also have an impact when you're in the number 2 or 3 position?
It's a good question. I'm trying to think. So I know for a couple of the examples, they were number 1, but I don't believe they all were. So I would say all of them. And in fact, I think one of them, they were even like, I saw this pattern happen when they were like 4th. So they weren't even in the top 3. So I don't think it's specific to the number 1 position, but I am seeing the trend of like, the more you dominate, the more this is impactful. So we're seeing this on the people that had, like, they rank everywhere, all over the place. They rank for a good radius around their office. They get a ton of traffic to their business profile. I'm sure there's pieces to this that I haven't even put together yet, like patterns, because Google is pretty complicated. But yeah.
Yeah. So we can pretty safely say any of those 3 positions in the local pack. Okay. So Will is asking, would this affect the appointment link section at all?
We've never seen that section impact ranking. Who knows? Maybe that'll be the next thing to change, but as of right now, no.
Okay, great. And I got another question here from before the webinar. Should we be putting our homepage as the website URL in GBPs, since this seems to be hitting location pages?
So you shouldn't be doing anything without checking to see if you're impacted. Like, again, I can't say that enough. So don't just go change to your homepage. First of all, see if you've had a drop in organic traffic on whatever page you are currently linking your profiles to. If you haven't, do nothing, right? You don't want to change this. But if you have, and you're currently linking to a location page, the second thing you want to check is what page ranks highest organically. That's the page you want to avoid. You want to change from. So depending on what scenario you fall into there, Kim, I would say, like, if it's your homepage that you're currently linking to, then you want to potentially try a different page, like a location page, but you could also do vice versa. Just look at what's ranking organically if you're being impacted.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Sarah here wants to know a little bit more about our testing. Can you explain more how you do single variable testing?
Yeah, so I do myself, several other people here at Sterling Sky. We have like about 100 different testing tasks open at any given time. So the way that we normally do it is we try to isolate a specific page, a specific thing where we do a single change, a single thing, and then watch to see what happens. The things that we usually want to monitor are rankings. We take a ton of screenshots. I need to know, like, did the SERP features change? That can mess with things all the time. We have AI overviews are like my biggest enemy right now because they come and go and then they change and they totally mess up all kinds of stuff. Core updates also mess up tons of stuff because Google will just shift the entire search results page and you see that and you're like, well, got to throw that test out the window. So I like to quote Kyle Roof on this because I feel like he is the OG when it comes to testing and single variable testing. And like he's one of the SEOs that I probably look up to the most. And he talks about this in this video he did that I quote him all the time. And he's like, in SEO, you're basically trying to look for probability. You're never going to see 100% of the thing all the time. So you might have a tactic that works. And as long as it works on clients the majority of the time, you are confident that it matters. And it's like a ranking signal. So that's very much how I approach it here. I'm like, if we do a bunch of tests and I'm seeing the same result on the whopping majority of them, we do more, the more confident we get. If we start doing more and more and we're seeing less confidence, then we pull back on that strategy because it's clearly not working. So that is part of why it took me 3 months to release this. It's not something I just started noticing yesterday because I really wanted to be confident in what I was seeing, and I wasn't when I first was looking at this back in end of November. I was just like, what am I looking at here? What are the patterns? I got to do more tests. But yeah, the quote that Kyle said, I feel like he sums it up very well.
Yeah. All right. One more question here from before the webinar. Are you only ever seeing the drop in organic when the map is linked to the same page as the organic page that is ranking?
Yes. Yeah, it is on a URL level. Now, the one thing I am not sure of is folders. This is like a question mark I have. I don't know how it works with folders because I'm like, let's say you have a folder for Chicago and then all your other URLs. Are they looking at the folder? Are they looking at the full URL? I actually don't know because most of our clients don't have folders. So all the ones we were testing this on did not have folders. So I don't know the answer to that, but I can say that it's definitely on the URL level and not the site level, which is great. And I feel like they kind of have to do that to make way for multi-location businesses because you might have 3 McDonald's in the same town. That doesn't mean they're the same thing. And it's, yeah. So I'm glad that they're not doing it on a site level. And my biggest fear with publishing this was that I don't know, Google goes and changes it, makes it a site-wide thing, and then we're all screwed. So hopefully they don't do that.
All right. All right. Ella here has another question. Are you seeing an impact in the AIO, or featured snippets dropping too?
No, man, those things are like a different beast all on their own. I feel like we could have a whole webinar on AIOs. What I hate about them is how frequently they change. So it's like I'm used to Google, and Google changes a lot. Don't get me wrong, but generally speaking, if you have the first position, you can expect to kind of maintain the first, it'll rotate a bit, but not crazy amount. Whereas AIOs are changing day to day. I'll see AIOs that I looked at 2 weeks ago, and they're now a completely different business, a completely different summary. It's driving me insane. So yeah, those are very different than what we're talking about here, but I have yet to figure out if they are even worth going after. That's the question we're trying to figure out. So we've been able to get them for clients. The problem is, do they stick? Because they change so often. So why should you bother if it's just going to change tomorrow? And then the second question is, how do you measure if they drive any traffic, which is very, very hard to answer because a lot of times you also rank organically. So you don't know, is the click happening from the AIO? Is it happening from organic? So we've been trying to test them. We're doing a whole bunch of tests right now to figure out, once we get the AIO, does traffic go up or does it go down, right? So that's another possibility. We're trying some tests on that right now. I don't know if we'll have data on that in the next month or so. It depends on how consistent the results were, but it is something I'm trying to answer. Completely unrelated to this update, though.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. All right. I got another question here from before the webinar. Do all service location pages need to be in the main navigation menu, or can they be standalone but interlinked pages so they are not orphaned pages?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I'd say topically relevant as you're kind of rethinking some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we usually try to keep less pages in the navigation. And the reason being is you do split your page rank, right? So if you have 500 pages that you're linking to everywhere and you have a score of 100, then you're splitting that 100 between, you know, all those pages. So if you want to control better, like where your page rank goes, you want to have less pages. So we tend to go and check to see what pages are actually leading to conversions. So which ones are actually driving the leads for our clients. Those are the pages we like to lead in the navigation. And then all the other ones we like interlink throughout the site. So I've seen very impressive results from that. When we go in and do that for new clients, their conversions go up because all the pages we leave in are the ones that convert, right? So definitely something to keep in mind as you're figuring out your site structure. It's hard over time as you add more pages. You're like, but I want to feature that one and I want to put it in navigation. And at some point you also sacrifice UX if you have like, you know, a drop down that lists like 50 different things. It's not a great user experience either.
Yeah. All right. We kind of have a different question here. Maybe not that related, but we'll answer it. Their GMB, which has been suspended multiple times. However, they have valid evidence such as name board, government license, other documents, everything, including the address is correct. Yet it is still, I'm assuming that's supposed to be not live. It's still not live. What would you recommend in this situation? Let's assume they haven't submitted the appeal yet, or maybe they have.
So one thing I can say right now with suspensions that I'm seeing all across the forums is they are really slow, like unusually slow. And this happens over time. Like, you know, as Google, I assume, gets backlogged, if they have more suspensions than usual, then they get behind on things, right? So right now I'd say they're very behind. Like suspensions are, I've heard things like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even more than that, which is significantly longer than usual. So that sucks on that end if you're in that boat right now. But as far as the answer, what's wrong, honestly, so many options. Our checklist of things to go through for suspensions is like a mile long. But the biggest things I usually see are it could be an account issue, like could be nothing to do with your business. It could be you and your Google account, right? So there's ways to check for that, which again, I'm not going to go into on this webinar because it's not the topic. But it could be that, or again, it's like Google doesn't think your business exists, or they think you're spamming because you've set up multiple listings for the same business. There are a lot of options. My suggestion would be, if you can't figure it out, either one, post on the business profile forum, or two, possibly looking into hiring somebody to help. There are people that offer this as a service. If you want to pay to get help for it, not always needed. Try the forum first. You can possibly get help there for free, but I know the backlog right now is long. So you're probably not resolution fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I've been going on, I think, 2 weeks for a couple cases, which is much longer than normal.
Really annoying.
Okay. So we got another one here. This is a good story as well. This is from before the webinar. For the diversity update you just discussed, this person's beauty business has been ranking due to their consistent blogging and large number of backlinks for the past 13 years they've been in business. We only have one location. We have been ranking organically in the SERPs, and we have also been in the 3-pack. Are we going to see our organic rankings tank, or is this only for multi-location businesses?
So I would say that so far I've seen it mostly on multiple location businesses, but we do have one client that's not. They've got a single location. They're facing it as well. One that I haven't solved yet. So the original switch hasn't worked yet. It hasn't been 2 weeks. So I'm still waiting the 2-week period to determine if it worked or not. But I can't tell you if it's going to impact you or not. All I can say is that I'm hearing more about this now in the last 30 days than I did before. I never heard anything back in December. There was no threads, nothing I was seeing online about anybody facing this kind of thing. We can put a couple of the threads in here if you want to see them on the local search forum. There was a thread that somebody started recently. There's a couple on Reddit. So I do think it's becoming more common, but I'm not going to tell it. Don't stress about it. Like, I wouldn't sit around worrying because honestly, the purpose of doing this webinar and publishing these videos is hopefully to give you like a bit of stress relief, even if it does happen to you, knowing that there's like options and it's not the end of the world. And, you know, you don't have to worry. There's ways to get it back.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So I have another like story from another person that wrote in before the webinar. They have clients that are affected by this, but they don't understand the recommendations to fix them. The clients are therapists with different service area pages, and they used to get both the repack and organic spots. Are you saying in the product section of the GBP, we should link to a blog post or something on the site rather than the page that's optimized for that service? And the GBP going to the home page isn't the best user experience rather than it going to a location page. So what would your suggestion be for them for like a multi-location business? And do the products or any other links on this profile affect organic at all?
And what industry was it?
Physical therapy or therapists.
Okay, therapist. Okay, I was going to say we have a physical therapist that we've done this for. So therapist, let's say you have 15 locations and each of those locations only has one page. That's probably the most challenging scenario because you would want to link to that page. So I would say now is the time to think about maybe getting a couple other pages per location, right? And if you're a therapist, maybe you have one page that's like specific about therapy, and then you have one that's about, I don't know, divorce therapy, or like people that are looking to get divorced, or people that needs therapy for their kids, or I don't know, insert more niche keywords into that pattern there. So maybe you want to look at having like a couple pages for each location. When you do that, then you have options, right, of like things to switch to. If none of those options exist right now and you're having this problem, I would try switching a couple to the homepage. Like just go try it, see what happens. I agree that it's not the greatest user experience, but as long as they can actually get your phone number and there is, an option for them to easily contact the business. We have a big multi-location business that if you go to their homepage, it somehow like auto redirects you to the right location page, which is kind of cool based on your location. So this would work perfectly if they ever ran into this scenario. But I would try like a couple going to the homepage, even though it's not ideal.
Yeah. So it's okay to link multiple GBPs to the same page.
100%. Oh yeah. I've seen like, we had a new multi-location client that just signed up with us that was like all their GBPs were linking to the homepage. That's actually pretty common. So there's no issues that I would see there.
Great. All right. And I got another story too. I love reading these like actual real world examples of people seeing this impacting them. So thank you guys for writing in. So this person, David, noticed back in November, Google started adding more variation to the local pack. Businesses that had never performed well in the local pack began appearing out of the blue. Keyword in the business name seemed to be a big factor. And many of the businesses that started appearing didn't have many reviews and didn't have very well optimized business profiles. Could this update we're seeing have impacted this and resulted in more businesses that hadn't had local pack visibility getting more local pack visibility?
I don't think so. I'm thinking in my head here, like, because again, it's people that already ranked in the local pack. Their local pack rankings weren't changing. So definitely could be something different. I will tell you that there were some big updates in the last 6 months that were not related to this. I know specifically there's one in mid-January, again, more heavily impacting organic, but it was substantial. Andrew Shotland, who has Local SEO Guide, they just put out a tool that tracks, I forget the number, a lot of search results for home service businesses. And it was like crazy variation towards the end of January. And we saw it for a few clients as well. We were like, holy, like the entire search result changed. Like it was actually nuts how much everything shuffled. And, business that was 1 is now like 5. And then you see this like flopping that happened. So I do think that there's a lot of other updates going on, which unfortunately, I wish I had time to cover them all. I have to kind of pick and choose. But I know there was one in January because we saw it. No clue what the patterns are. I haven't even tried to figure it out. I didn't see any negatives. I feel like I try to analyze the ones that are bad because then I'm like, oh, we need to find solutions, right? If it's like an update that our clients all were winning from, I don't have as much reason to go and analyze it. But it's worth maybe like looking at getting an audit done or something like that if you're worried that it's something that's sticking long term. I couldn't tell you without spending a few hours looking though.
Yeah, definitely audits are, they're one way to analyze if you think you've been impacted by an update like this, but also helps you moving forward, like what you should really focus on to improve rankings. Because, maybe you've gone down, recently because of an update, but you can only move forward with like new strategies. So that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and I'll just throw this out there. If you're like limited budget, you're like, Joe, I don't want to hire an SEO company. That's cool. We have a free forum. Go to the local search forum if you want to post. If you're okay with posting your business website and like you're cool with sharing that information, go ahead and start a post there. You'll have lots of advice. Nothing super detailed. Like nobody's going to spend 4 hours for free on the forum helping you. So it's gotta take it with a grain of salt. But you might get some really useful information there from things that people will see that'll kind of jump out at them. So that's an option. We also have a subreddit that we're really active on. If you like Reddit, the local search subreddit is one that we control. So you post there as well. So there's lots of options if you're just looking for advice and not needing a huge, thorough audit.
Plus, we do have a webinar coming up in 5 days. We've been doing a lot of good free webinars on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll talk about this one. This was one I've been wanting to do for a while. So it's an interesting title. I've already gotten some questions. They're like, Joy, what are you talking about? So I met Brian at a conference that I went to last year called SEO Rockstars. Very different conference than one I've ever spoken at before. Just very different perspectives, different SEO strategies than, again, conference that I spoke at. But Brian's perspective is really interesting because he has experienced some things kind of on the dark side. He's had some clients that have had negative SEO done to them. He's got some really interesting thoughts on, what makes a strategy black hat, like, should you do it? And it's an interesting perspective that I'm kind of fascinated with because Google says to do a lot of things that SEOs do anyway. And knowing what's okay to do and what's not okay to do is not always crystal clear. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this webinar is like, what guidelines does Google actually enforce? And, I have always said, I think link building is against Google's guidelines. Like if you look at the rules, they tell you not to do it, yet every SEO company does it because it works. So should you just not link build because Google tells you not to? I would say no. So we're going to talk about like some of this stuff. It's probably going to be an awesome webinar. I don't even know how we're going to get through it all in an hour, but again, totally free. Come and ask your questions. Brian's got a really cool perspective that is very different than any other guest we've had on. So really looking forward to this one.
Yeah. All right. So we got time for a couple more questions. And this time, I mean it.
That was like one or two more.
Yeah. Okay. So Julian asks here about branded terms. Have you seen any effect from branded terms? I can't imagine your brand name website being demoted under the local pack.
Yeah. And I will say any of these filtering things that Google does when it comes to like not wanting the same website multiple times does not apply to branded terms. So you'll see this a lot. So no, I've not seen any negatives to branded terms. The most annoying thing I see for branded terms is, ads for other businesses. That's what it gets. Oh, so many. The LSAs really irritate me. I'm like, can you go for real?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, wouldn't do that. And again, I would want to say even to the impacts we've seen with this one have been probably more substantial for bigger brands, like brands that are very well known. And again, the monsters, the Goliaths that are like dominating both sections, it was not as good for them as smaller businesses.
Yeah. And those businesses too, it is harder to kind of clean it up and be proactive if you have so many locations, each linking to their own local page, and you see demotions across the board. You really have to come up with a strategy to fix that at scale with all those locations if you don't want to link them all to the homepage.
Yeah. I mean, that's one try it, right? Like it's one of those things, try it, see what happens. We want to hear feedback too. Like I'd love to know for people that are saying they're experiencing this, because I've had quite a few people on different social sites be like, oh my gosh, I thought I was seeing this and like didn't put the two together, but yes, like I've seen this pattern. And I really want to know, like in a few weeks, like if you tried it, what happened? What was the result? What are you noticing? I feel like the more we share, the better. So do chime in, like leave a comment on our YouTube channel, post on the local search forum. There's a million ways to get a hold of us, but I really love hearing feedback.
Yeah. All right. So we got another question here from Sean. If you're linked to in the IAO, will you be excluded from the local pack and or organic rankings?
Not currently that I've seen. I've seen lots of people that like, I've actually seen some where the AIO is like exactly the same website as the featured snippet. I'm like, what is the point of these things? Like they're just repeating what's already there. I don't like them if you haven't been able to follow them, my tone. But no, I have not seen anything yet. One thing I am seeing an increase on that is a little terrifying is AIOs. So AIOs, by the way, AI overviews on Google. They're the things at the top. And depending on what country you're in, they're more prevalent in certain countries than others. But I'm starting to see an increase in the amount of them that are actually recommending specific businesses. So like you search, dentist near me, and it's like, you should try these 3 dentists. And it's wildly different than like the people that are in the local pack or organic. Little scary, because again, I don't like AI because it's too unpredictable right now and it's not as easy to control. But yeah, I don't know what's going to come from that. That is a very much like to be determined kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we are doing a lot of tests on them though. So really hope that we will have some videos in the future once we have some data on it. It's just too early at this point. I don't have anything conclusive.
Yeah. Well, when we do, you guys will be able to know. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, because that's where you're going to find out information when we do. But yeah, we're at time. So thank you guys so much for all your questions. Thank you, Joy, for answering everything so eloquently. And just make sure you guys are subscribed to YouTube, checking us out at Local U. And then we'll see you next time.